Hi, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Dreams Unveiled. Today, we're going to start exploring different types of dreams. For the most part, we have been really looking at just what we call normal or standard dreams people have. And they're pretty entertaining and they're pretty fun, and it's really helpful when we know a lot about them. So, I just wanted to share some other types of dreams. Some of this we have explored. For instance, reoccurring dreams. We have talked about reoccurring dreams on a couple of the episodes so far. Nightmares. We haven't really spent any great deal of time with nightmares, but we will. We will. Lucid dreaming. And although it's rare, you can actually control your dreams, and you can have a lucid dream where you are actually cognizant of what is going on in the dream and even can change things in it. So that's pretty cool. I aspire to that as soon as I can remember my dreams. I don't want to control something I don't remember. That would be kind of silly. Prophetic dreams, which I've shared that I definitely believe in prophetic dreams. And then precognitive dreams, which are dreams that forecast something in the future. What's interesting about all of these types of dreams is that science doesn't support all of them, but there are a number of reports about precognitive dreams, prophetic dreams. There's also healing dreams. There's a variety of other dreams that we're not even talking about today. So I think that really is important. I think, false awakening, that's another one where you think you're awake, but you're not. You're still dreaming. And sometimes it looks like a dream in a dream, which I've had a few times. So today my guest is Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly.
Hello, how are you?
I am great. I hope you are doing well. The weather's good here. That's always a good start to us having a decent day, I suppose. Today we're going to talk a little bit about precognitive dreams. And so Kimberly is going to share a dream. Now, unlike most of the normal dreams, when somebody has a standard dream, I request that it's something very recent because we need to know what's going on in the waking hours. For this particular dream, this is actually an older dream, much older dream that she is going to share. With that, I will let you share your dream.
Okay. So my dream actually starts out where I'm on the road, and it's Route 6 in Vonley. And as I'm on the outside or on the road with my sister-in-law, there's used to be J&J Trailer Park, and that is to the right of us. So when we stepped from the road, which was daylight, stepped onto the grass and it became nighttime. Immediately it was nighttime. So we started walking down toward the back of the trailer park, and as we did, I stopped halfway down, but she continued. After she had gotten down to wherever she had gone to, I heard 3 gunshots. And at that moment, there was like birds flying from the trees, and she's running, and I'm looking, and I can see her coming toward me running, and then she's right next to me, and both of us start running together. And I said, "What just happened?" And she looked at me and said, "I just shot and killed a friend." And we went up to the road. As we get to the top of the road, we're still on the grass of J&J Trailer Park, and as we stepped onto the road, it became daylight. That was the dream. You want me to talk about like what happened afterwards?
Well, hang on there. Let me just ask a few questions. There's so much in this dream. I'm not going to actually interpret this dream just because it is it is so old. But meanwhile, the visual of stepping onto the pavement from the grass.
Yeah.
So at the trailer park, it was dark the entire time.
It was.
But as soon as you
left
or were on the way there, it was sunlight.
Yeah, as soon as we stepped onto the road, it was sunlight, bright sunlight. It was like you could just cut a knife down the middle of it, daylight and sunlight.
And this was in the winter time, right? This dream?
No, it was summer.
Oh, it was summer.
It was the grass was green. I could see the green. However, the trees were like they are right now, no leaves, no nothing. The trees in the trailer park had nothing on them, and but the ground was green, the grass was green, and it was nighttime.
Okay. Now, with that said, you could share what happened when you woke up. And one last question, because I wasn't clear when I was reading this. When you woke up from the dream, was it morning?
For me,
Yes.
what time it was that I woke up, I never looked at the clock, but it was dark out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Super.
but I do want to say, in the dream, she actually said his full name. She actually said when we were running, she said I shot and killed, and she said his full name. So when I woke up from the dream, I literally bolted into a seating position. I had sweat all over the front of my shirt that I had worn. It was wet. My face was really sweaty, really wet. And my husband was next to me, so I woke him up. And he wasn't too happy with me, you know. And I was like, I had a dream. It seemed so real. In the dream, it felt like I was really there. This was really happening. And I was not sleeping. Like, it felt like I was really there in the moment. And I told him, I said, it just felt so real. It felt so real. And he said, don't worry about it. Go back to sleep. It's just a dream. But I could not go back to sleep. There was no going back to sleep. The dream felt so real to me. I could not go back to sleep at all. And I tried, you know. And then the next morning comes and I'm just kind of like, he's like, did you stay up all night? You know, kind of thing to me. And I was like, yeah, like I just could not go back to sleep. It felt too real. And I knew both of them, you know.
Let's take a little bit of a moment before you go into what happened in real life. Precognitive dreams, like I said, science says there's no evidence about them, but they've been happening for a very long time. There was a dream had by Abraham Lincoln, where he walked into his office and there was a coffin in there, and was inquiring who was in it, and somebody had told him it was him. I'm pretty sure this is how it goes, but you can look this up. It was him, and he had been assassinated, and this was days before his assassination, so by John Wilkes Booth. So it's pretty fascinating. Now, here's what science kind of says about this. It probably was that he was just having fear about it because there was an assassination attempt a year earlier. So was this something that was happening? But I'm not sure that there was evidence that he was having ongoing dreams, you know, about, you know, giving him great fear about the previous attempt for assassination. So science tries to really say something in you somewhere may know something, and your brain puts something together. You know, I've listened to enough dreams like this, and I'll tell you, I have no explanation. I really don't. Like, I believe in prophetic dreams. Prophetic dreams a lot of times can provide insight into future events. And my husband and I, having been in ministry, in the early days, we had some people that were really trying to sabotage what we were doing. And I had a dream that was a very clear warning that I needed to get them out of the ministry and not have them participate because they were a threat to the ministry. That's kind of a prophetic dream. This dream was clearly very vivid. She remembers, you know, every detail. And the sweats, it's not uncommon in dreams that cause great duress to have night sweats and wake up just covered in sweat. So that is not uncommon at all. So with that little break, I'm going to say, Kimberly, share about what happened in the days following.
Yeah, because it was just a couple of days later, a few days later, that I had called my sister-in-law and asked her if she wanted to go to a party with Stephen and I, because it was going to be New Year's celebration. So we were going to a party and we were thinking of people to go. So I had called her to go, and she said she didn't want to go and said they were going to, her and Shar were going to stay in. And I said, well, how come? And then eventually she said they didn't have a babysitter, and Shar had a child and she had a child. So I said that I would call a few people, see if I can get them a babysitter. So I did. I hung up and I called my sister because I knew she really liked babysitting on New Year's Eve. She made some good money that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I called her and I said, would you be interested in babysitting? She said, yes. I called my sister-in-law back and I said, my sister's going to babysit for you guys. Would you guys go? And she was like, no, we decided to order pizza, stay in, and we're just going to celebrate New Year's Eve together. And I was like, oh, all right. Okay, like what can I do about that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I hung the phone up with her. That was New Year's Eve. The next morning, I got a phone call, and it was my daughter who was at her dad's house, and she was like, "Mom, you're not gonna believe this, but Aunt shot and killed somebody." And I was like, "What?" And so, where's your father? And she was like, he's right here. I said, okay, let me talk to your father. So he gets on the phone. And I'm like, hey, what does she mean? She shot and killed somebody. And he was like, oh, she did, like that's what happened. And I'm like, who did she do this to? And he was like, I don't know because they haven't said it on the news. And I said, was it? And I said his name. And he said, I don't know because they haven't advertised it. And I was like, oh, and I ended up hanging up the phone, and I was just like biting at the bit because I knew the dream I had had just a few days prior to that, and I knew who it was in my dream that she told me you know, and there it was on the news. There it was, the two of them, and on it was New Year's Eve, but I didn't know that. I was trying to interpret my own dream back then as to why the day and night time, and as to why the other reasons in the dream as to why that would be, why I would have a dream that came true that bothered me for years.
Now, who did you talk to about this after?
I didn't talk to anybody but my husband. Like he was the only one because once I had gotten off the phone, I said, "You're not gonna believe what my daughter had just told me," and I talked to my ex, and this is what he tells me, and nobody knows who it is, and so we were kind of like glued to the TV, and then the news came on later and had advertised who that person was, and his jaw dropped, and so did mine because although everything about me was saying that was him. That was him. I know it's him. They haven't said so, but I feel like that was him. And my ex-husband was like, "It was just a dream. It was just a dream." And he kept saying that to me and then, like I said, once the news came on, and they said who it was, then we were like, "What?" And then more information would come out in the news, and I didn't really listen to the information on the news. My mother-in-law at the time, her and I talked, and I did not tell her. I didn't tell anybody about the dream for probably years down the road before I actually mentioned it, and it would have been to like close people because they wouldn't think I'm crazy,
Right.
for saying such a thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kimberly. If I had a dream and I knew it, and in the dream it was clear who did the shooting, and then that shooting actually happened, even though I would be glued to the TV too, because I would deep down expect that it was going to be the same person killed in the dream.
That's how
when you have
was
that whole
feeling.
dream, how do you not
Yeah,
not
that's how
think
I
that?
was. Stephen wasn't. He literally was like, it was just a dream. It's just a dream. It's not, like we're not going to know who this person is. But in the dream, the connections that I put together, is that okay to say?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
The connections that I put together was, he was killed right at midnight, and that midnight I thought, oh my God, that could be 12 o'clock midday, 12 o'clock midnight, but it was day on the road, and it was night on the grass of J&J Trailer Park, and then I was like, she shot him 3 times, and in the report, she shot him 3 times, and I was just, I couldn't believe it was with a shotgun. That was another thing because in the dream, when she said that she had shot him, it was the sound of it because my dad had shotguns. He was part of a gun club,
Mm-hmm.
and he had different kinds. But the sound of a shotgun was a different sound, and that's what I thought when I heard the sounds go off. And then that's when I put that together, and then found out it was a shotgun.
After you had this dream, and after you heard the evidence and knew that the dream really predicted something that
Yeah.
actually happened, like a few days, right? That was not a very long period of
Right,
time.
it wasn't.
Uh, so, how did you feel after that? Especially feeling like I can't tell people this; they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think,
Yeah, I definitely felt like people would think I was crazy for that, absolutely. And I didn't share it. I didn't share that I had the dream of it because after all when I think about it, it was a couple of days prior to New Year's Eve when we called to invite people to the party we were going to go to. But I definitely felt like anybody that I would talk to, even the close ones, would really think you didn't have a dream that came true. That just isn't so, and I'd be looked at in a different light, and I was not comfortable with that at
"I'm
all.
sure."
And then as time went on by, and like my husband and I, we would talk back and forth about that dream and how I was all sweaty when I woke up and my shirt was all wet and I was panicking while I was talking to him because I definitely wasn't like, hey, I had a dream, and no, I was like, you're not gonna believe this. And I was like, wow, with the way that I had spoken about the dream. And then it was real kept quiet. And then when I felt comfortable to share it, I did. And a few people, even though I felt comfortable with them, a few people did think that I was crazy and that it was nonsense. That if the trial had happened and I had known by the trial, I didn't. I didn't. I had this information prior to the trial, prior to the murder, because that's what it is to me. Even though it was, I don't think it went down like. I don't remember the court procedure thing. I went once and I didn't go again. But I think they gave her a time served. It wasn't like somebody who goes to prison for murder. You know.
I think what's interesting is you carry this inside of you, just you and your husband, because your credibility would have been in question. I mean, everything. Are you
Yeah.
making this up? Is this attention seeking? Who knows what people would have thought?
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how many people have dreams like this that they don't ever tell anybody
Mm-hmm.
because they're really
I know
afraid.
I was afraid of ridicule.
Well, I will
really
tell
was.
you, Abe Lincoln did tell his wife, and I think he told a few other people too. So he did have people that knew it, but because science does not have any evidence of precognitive dreams, that they're going to always look for an explanation in the natural. I can't do any analysis on this dream because it's too old. One of the things that we look for is what is going on. Oh, wait, you cannot see our behind the scenes cameraman, cutter of ums out of our recording, has something to say.
I was just going to say that there's a lot of videos on YouTube of people that have won the lottery that have had dreams before they won the lottery, and I've had personally 3 dreams where I won the lottery. Same, 2 are the exact same, like a year apart.
So I'll be around saying, congratulations,
Yeah.
see what really happened.
Yeah.
Well, you can
Yeah.
analyze that.
When we do win the lottery, I'm going to hire people to do some of the stuff that Bill and I are doing for this video.
Well, it's interesting that they don't find any proof on it because I'm just going to say, from my experience, having that experience really, really scared me. But it didn't really so much scare me till I seen that it came true.
Right.
When I seen that parts of my dream were parts of the event that had taken place, that's when I really got scared because I was like, why? Like, I questioned everything after that. Why would I have such a dream? And by that time, Bethany, my sister-in-law, she was my ex-sister-in-law. At the time of the dream, she was my ex-sister-in-law. We were very close, even though we had I had divorced the stepbrother and stuff, and I was still close to the whole entire family. Still being invited to Christmas and Thanksgiving and just invited to everything. And though I'd found somebody else and got married to somebody else, I was still close to that family, And he wasn't. He was someone I knew through school. I dated him a few times, so I didn't feel that there was a close connection there with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was kind of like a kid stuff when you're in school. And but yeah, after that, I remember feeling like when I seen that it came true, I questioned everything, and I was really scared for a while. Why and how?
Yeah, I honestly, I could see some people, especially if they're close to the players and stuff, be like, I'm not saying, if they actually came and they told people about the dream and then suddenly the police are knocking on their door,
Oh
right? I
yeah,
mean, how horrifying would that be?
yeah,
And I'm sure
yeah.
that there are stories of that happening.
Mhm.
It's really interesting, the dreams. And I will tell you, as much as you were more afraid after you found out what actually happened, in the dream, you were very afraid
I
because
was.
to really have that kind of sweat generated in a dream like that, it's not unheard of, and night sweats aren't uncommon because dreams are often focused on anxiety and scary things. And I wouldn't necessarily classify this a nightmare either because it didn't have that kind of horror
Right.
uh, element to it, but just the panic and as you said, that sheer panic that.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I felt like even when I woke up, I felt like I never had a dream like that. I didn't feel like that was like uh, a regular dream. Like I felt that it was so real. And then I was started to relate the feelings of that to the one I had when I was 5 years old. So it was like this this 5 year old, having this dream. And then all these dreams that had taken place in between, none compared. And then this dream came along and it's 100% like that. There's a different feeling. There's a To me, I'm only talking about me. There was a complete different feeling about that dream and in the dream than the other kinds of
Mhm.
dreams. And it felt like it was like a very long time waking up. And once I sat up, it felt like it wasn't. It was like a hair of a dog, kind of like a second kind of a dream. How could I be all wet and sweaty? How could my heart be racing out of my chest? Because it literally felt that way when I woke up.
I'll tell you, I've had a couple of dreams that have been very much like that, and I could tell they weren't normal dreams.
Yeah.
And I'm interested too for anybody that gets to see this. Have you had a precognitive dream? Have you had dreams where you recognize they were different from the other dreams that you would typically dream? One of the interesting things that we've talked about on here is that you can dream during REM cycle and not non-REM cycle. So you can dream. Most of us dream about 6 times a night, even though we don't remember it. We lose 95% of all of our dream information in the morning. The most vivid dreams that we typically have, as far as normal dreams go, are going to happen in the morning because the REM sleep cycle at that point is longer and you're kind of getting close to waking up. So you tend to have longer, more vivid, detailed dreams. You woke up, it was still dark out.
Yeah, it was. And I was awake for a little bit before everybody got up. So I don't know what time it was. I could guess, but that's all it would be is a guess. And if somebody said, when do you guess that you had that dream and woke up? It would have been probably around 3 in the morning,
Okay.
probably, because it was a bit of time before the sun came up. And I was, like I said, I was just overwhelmed. When I woke up, my heart was pounding, my body was wet and sweaty, and he's just all like, it's just a dream, go back to sleep. And I'm like, it wasn't just a dream. It
Right?
didn't feel like it was just a dream. But I still didn't say anything either. I didn't go telling everybody. Because that ran through my head like, could I have could I have changed this if I said something? You know? Not knowing that it was gonna come true. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
would have never expect. You don't expect that. Why would
Right,
anybody expect that? Right.
right. So it's always stuck with me. I remember that dream like it happened yesterday, not a problem. But I just definitely have always felt, and I had a chance to talk with her about the dream, but because I think of what was going on, I kind of felt like she didn't want to hear it, and it didn't matter, and it didn't mean anything, and so what? And then I got to talk with her mom about it. And her mom has since passed, but her mom was just, she's a very, very, they're very Catholic. They're a very Catholic family, and the beliefs are not there. So it was, I won't say on deaf ears, but I expressed it, but it didn't go anywhere. And most people it didn't, because most people really were like, they questioned it,
I understand.
you know.
No, I understand. Well, I want to tell you, thank you so much for sharing this. And I hope for the audience that people have questions and have thoughts about it and maybe have had similar experiences. I don't have all the answers. I love interpreting dreams, but I don't know everything. And I learn too as we are doing uh, these episodes. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, thanks for having me, because I don't mind talking about it. Whether it's for people who believe me or who don't believe me. I really started to feel after a long time, after a while, I started feeling like it's true. It's a fact. You can look this up. I'm not, the facts of the case. You can look up the facts. But the fact, too, is that I did have it before it happened.
Well, I absolutely have no doubt about that. And the idea that that dream has stuck with you. Can you remember 10 other dreams you've had?
No, like I said, it was like that 5-year-old dream. Yes, I can remember that like it was yesterday. And this dream I can remember like it was yesterday. And there's one other that happened, and that was probably 18 years ago. That one I can kind of pinpoint. And yeah, no, those three are like core memories kind of thing to me. Yeah.
Well, there we go. So until she has another dream like this, we may not see her 'cause she doesn't remember her dreams. But
Right.
Kimberly, I just want to say it was great to meet you.
Well, thank you,
And
you too.
thank you so much for sharing your dream. And hopefully, be open-minded, everybody, because we don't have all the answers. And I just want to thank you for coming on, and to everybody watching, I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have sweet dreams.